Okay, now I want to go to the one that's called unusual experiences. And below that is Gary's revelation. I'm going to take each of them separately. I'm going to describe something to you that comes to you, for most of you, outside your normal sensory perception. And let me give you an example. How many of you have had the experience where you're thinking of someone and the phone rings and there they are? How many have done that? Just hold your hands up, would you? Just look around you. Look at how many have done that, okay? Now, I don't know if you sat down when that happened and thought, man, that's really something. Something happened outside of my senses, you know, something way out there, my goodness. Or you just took it in stride and said, oh, well, yeah, coincidence, you know, something like that. But think about that. Is that really coincidence? Of all the zillions of things that you could have been thinking about at that point in time, all of your to-do list and all the memories you've ever had and all the stuff that ranges in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or however there are, all of those, you happen to be thinking about that person at that moment, okay? And that person independently, with all the things they could be doing, happened to call you. Now, coincidence? Well, perhaps. But you start putting the statistics to that, and that's not coincidence. That's a long way from it. And then look around at how many have had the experience. How many have had the experience more than once? Look around you, okay? More than twice. Look around you, okay? This is statistically absurd to think that that's only coincidence, okay? So what I point out to you is something happened outside of your normal senses that you may to date have not really paid as much attention to as you might have, because it seems sort of routine, you know, it's happened before, but it's also kind of amazing at the same time. Other things happen, so something like somebody comes along with it, I mean, you're dwelling on a problem, and somebody somewhere comes along with just the right answer, right at the right time. You ever have that happen? You know, there's some hands out there. These things happen, and we just give them passing weight. But I'm proposing them to you as evidence that there's something outside of our senses, and something very important outside of our senses. Now, I want to speak with what I call Gary's revelation, and I want to tell you a story. I was actually in, for a brief period of time, the presence of God. And this happened in 1988. And I want to develop this story for you. By the way, before I even develop a story, how many of you here have had the experience of being in the presence of God? Oh, look around. Would you raise your hands a little higher so I can see them? That's about 15% of the people here. If I was just to take a cross-section of the country someplace and just have random people in here, I'd expect, oh, 1 or 2 hands or something like that. But what do we have, 30, 40 hands, something like that? So this is a more highly evolved group, if you will. We're in the healing professions here, and so these things become a little more commonplace to us. But I want to discuss my revelation. The year was 1988. I was lying down in bed. I'd just woken up, and I was going over my own list of things to do, and it was ominous. It went on and on and on. And I was kicking myself for all the promises I had made and the things I had to do. You know, I was unhappy with me. I was unhappy with the world, and in huge frustration. I said to myself, and meant it, who needs this? Now, I'm in polite company. Those weren't quite the words I used. But anyway, who needs this? It wasn't just an academic thing. I really meant it, and at that moment, I let go of the world. I let go of this experience. I let go of this illusion. And what happened was instantly everything in this experience that I experienced was gone, poof, vanished. And in its place was the ultimate sense of unending love, so intense that I don't know how to explain it to you. That's all that was there. In that state, there was impossible to have things like death and disease and poverty and trauma and war and all this kind of stuff. It was impossible in that state. It was an awe-inspiring thing. And I remember being there, saying to myself, you know, this is what's real. at that moment by comparing it to the experience that we're having here running around in bodies. This experience here appeared to be like an illusion. It was something like this. It was something like in this experience, I'm running around inside of a bubble. And inside the bubble are all my beliefs and experiences here and so on that tell me what this world is all about, the world of separation and all of that. But outside this bubble is this massive amount of intense love, and that's all there is. There is only love. And it's trying to get through, but my bubble's pretty thick, so is yours. And what happens was it was like somebody took a pin and popped the bubble, and all that stuff went poof and whoosh. I was in that state. I've tried many times to explain this to people, and I'm going to try again here with maybe a humorous note or two. I remember Carol Burnett one time, the comedian Carol Burnett. She was trying to explain to a man what it was like to give birth, okay? And in a way, that's my challenge here, okay? In a way. And then what she said was, well, what you do is you take your lower lip, imagine this, take your lower lip and your thumb and forefinger, both on, and then pull it over your head, okay? And so, even that, I'm not sure the man gets it. However, there's some hope there about the man having some idea, because the man has some reference points. He knows what pain is, for example. Maybe not just that pain, but he knows what pain is, so he has some idea. He can put together some idea what that might be like. He could even imagine himself giving birth through his own genitalia. I didn't say that, did I? However, to describe this other state as another challenge to it. Because how do you explain to somebody what it's like to have only love, and only love in the experience? Only love. How do you, try to, while you're sitting there, try to do that. Try to get to a state where there's only love. No other chatter, nothing else, only love. Try to get yourself in a state where there is no time. See, that's nearly impossible. We are so conditioned to time. Time is, you got here on time tonight, did you not? And we're gonna end on time and so on. Time is part of your experience here, and you are so conditioned to it to imagine yourself without it. That's a real challenge. But how about imagining yourself without space? There's space between you, there's space between me, there's space between your fingers, there's space every place, You are conditioned, and I am conditioned, to experience space. But try to imagine a state where that doesn't exist, where there's only love. Okay? So anyway, that was my revelation, and that changed my world from that point. If you had known me prior to that point, you would have seen, a hard-driving businessman, get ahead, do this, do that, and all that other kind of stuff. And it changed my whole outlook on things. And when I had the opportunity to bring EFT to the world, my previous way of doing this would be say, well, okay, let me see, how do we maximize the profit here, okay? How do I put this out in a way where we can maximize the profit? That's the American way. Well, I didn't do that because I thought it was so precious, I thought the whole world should have it. So the question was not how can I maximize the profit, how can I maximize its use in the world? That's a different question. And that comes about from having this other experience. It will shift everything that you do once you have it. Okay? I want to give you a little example here. I asked people on my new website to give me some experiences they may have had that would lend something to this. And one person wrote this to me. In 1994, I attended a workshop on animal talking, that is, talking to animals. As a very left-brain veterinarian, I had made the decision to play the game and put aside my rational brain. At the moment of exercise, we were on a farm. We were on a farm. I found myself in a place in the middle of different fenced areas where horses were standing. And I started to talk to 2 horses 20 yards away from me, telling them that I was a dog and cat doctor and that I thought I would one day be working with them, the horses, but that I was frightened because of their size and that I didn't really know what they liked. And guess what? In 1 second, not only those 2, but all the others, probably 7 or 8, started to walk towards me at the same time. They were all there around me. I started to cry and realized I didn't know anything about this world. So I thought that was poignant. I wanted to share that with you. All right, now what I want to do is get to quantum physics. Let me see what my PowerPoint looks like here. There we go. Okay. I don't know how many of you are familiar with quantum physics, but I suggest, I'm imagining not everyone has a firm grasp of that. So I want to give you a sense of what this is all about, so you'll get a better sense of what I'm trying to tell you here. Quantum physics is the study of things that are very, very small, very tiny. And to give you a sense of that, imagine yourself trying to build an automobile the size of a grain of rice. What would you make the wheels out of? Okay. And how would you put the wheels on this tiny little car? And what would you use for bolts? And how would you make the little threads in the bolts? And how would you do that? Okay. You couldn't do that. This is the answer for you, okay? You couldn't do that given the existing tools and rules that we have. You have to throw out all the rules when you get down to something that small, because you just can't make a car like that, given the current rules. Got to throw them out. Well, quantum physics studies not just little bitty cars, I mean, they go way beyond that. They study atoms, and there are trillions of atoms, just in one little grain of rice. So they get down to the atoms, and those are the really, 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 really small things. And they find there that all the rules change. The rules that we think are important and valid, etc., in this experience change totally there. And what's important about that is that you and I are made up of these atoms. We're made up of them. Okay. And so if at that level the rules all change, we need to pay attention to that. And I don't know how many of you remember a few years ago there was a DVD put out called What the Bleep? Okay? Oh, look at that. Most of you have seen that DVD, I guess. Okay. And there was a group of very bright scientists of the time that were trying to say to us in lay terms what quantum physics is about. And so I studied that video, and I pulled parts out of that so we can see them. And if you'll see all these pictures, those of you who've seen this DVD, you will recognize the pictures. There's Candace Pert lower left, and Amit Goswami, who's also a speaker here, who's second from the top on the left, and so on it goes, Lynn McTaggart, Fred Allen Wolf, and off goes the list. And so they made a lot of findings, and they reported them in this DVD. And what I want to do is summarize them here. And then I want to read some things, but what I want to do here is emphasize that you're listening here to the most brilliant scientific minds of our time. Okay? This is what they say. Duh, our senses deceive us. Okay? We are not separate, we are one. Sound familiar? We create our own reality. There is no out there. It's basically an illusion. We live in an illusion. There is no time nor space. Now, there's more findings than just those, but those are central. And what I want to do here is I want to read some of the quotes right from that DVD that are right on point here. I'm just going to read a few of them. And as I read them to you, if you would kindly see in them what we've been talking about so far, about our senses deceive us and we are one and we're not separate and so on. So let me begin with a few of them here. At the most fundamental level of our being, we are all one, and that oneness is love. It is God. We are not separate from each other or from anything else in the universe. Our senses tell us otherwise, of course, but that is an illusion. Sound familiar? Okay. So you may not think I'm smart enough to say these things, but these guys are. All of our worldly problems can be reduced to the mistake that we think we are separate. The world as we see it is a projection of our own beliefs in separateness. We are conditioned to believe this because our limited senses deceive us. There is nothing outside of ourselves, and everything our eyes see is an illusion. We have projected our own beliefs onto the world screen and are acting according to our own erroneous projections. There is no out there. There's more. I've gone pages and pages of them here, but I make the point. Okay. Quantum physics has pointed to God. They have found God. You ask any quantum physicist and they'll tell you that. They've pointed to it. Now, the interesting thing is I have yet to meet one that has actually experienced this. They point to it, but they haven't experienced. I happen to have experienced it, but I'm not really a quantum physicist. I know enough about it to sit here and tell you a few things, but I'm certainly not on their level. But I've experienced it. And they will point to it. I would love to find someday a quantum physicist who's actually had my experience and the experience that some of you have had being in the presence of God for those momentary times. But what does tell us how? It's like going back to what I was saying earlier, and that is if this really is an illusion, what can we do about it? If our senses deceive us, what can we do about it? Because all we really have is what our senses show us, plus what science is giving us. But how do we get there? How do we get to a point, if we are so conditioned in time and space and all of that and separateness, how do we get to a point where we see love instead? How do we do that? And what comes along now, and it's interesting, right at the same time in history comes along this, what I consider to be this astonishing document called, lower left-hand corner, A Course in Miracles.